Yesterday, while my wife was putting the children to sleep upstairs, I quickly put on my snow boots and a winter hat, opened the front door, and dashed across the street to the gas station convenience store to buy 3 bars of chocolate. Often, after our kids are asleep and we're sitting watching television, my wife asks me, "Is there any chocolate in the house?" The answer is usually no, and this doesn't cause much of a stir. We're resigned to not have chocolate in the house. We like chocolate, but we don't usually buy it. Noticing that my wife had had an exhausting day, I thought that this would be a nice surprise for her, and indeed it was. Her eyes began to water when I showed her the Kit Kat bar. At the convenience store, I waited anxiously as the cashier in the rear of the counter counted some coins into his register till, presumably because he was just beginning his shift and needed to make sure his money was in order. Due to the surprise I wanted to give my wife, I hadn't told her that I was going across the street and was worried that if she called out to me or came downstairs, she would notice that I was gone and either worry or catch me in the act of Operation Chocolate-Induced Tears. The cashier couldn't count any slower. He finally came up and rung up my stuff. As he came close, I noticed that his face was perspiring. I had just run in from the 10-degree that is a January night in central Pennsylvania and found his sweating extremely surreal. As he was scanning my Twix, he mumbled, "Is that all?" As friendly as I could, I replied yes, when I really meant no. That was, in fact, not all. I wanted to say, "Who are you?" "My name is Jorge. I live across the street." "Do you ever think about God?" I wanted to be friends with this man. A voice in my head egged me to do it. Do it. I became afraid, meaning I became afraid personified. My hands began to sweat. I thanked him for ringing up my chocolates with all the love that I could muster. To the naked eye, it was probably just a regular, quotidian thank you, but I intended that thank you be part prayer, part invitation. Putting the change in my pajama pockets, I pulled away from the lottery ticket-covered counter and then surprised myself as I inquired, "Are you all right?" Taken aback by the break in the professionalism of our exchange, he hesitantly responded, "What?" I nodded towards his sweaty forehead and asked, "You're sweating." He very nicely, and realizing that it must be okay for us to talk like this, said, "Oh yeah, running around trying to do all this stuff." He said this while motioning with his hand all over the convenience store, as if he was doing something like casting a spell on all those snacks, magazines, and car refresheners. I acknowledged the grandeur of his work with an understanding smirk. The cashier's movements were in slow motion. Out of the radio came the call that the Pittsburgh Steelers were slowly making their way to their 7th Super Bowl appearance. Both the cashier and I weren't actually listening to that. I quickly closed that conversation with, "Oh, all right, thanks." I might have uttered "take care" as I was walking out, but I think I didn't say anything. I wanted to, though. I wanted to tell him how when I meet strangers and I have an incredible urge to talk about the most profound subject that swims through my consciousness. I want to have personal, long, and reflective conversations about God and all the complexities of humans' potential relationship to God. I don't want to talk about religion. I don't want to talk about history or politics. I don't want to talk about society or the differences between East and West. I don't even want to philosophize about the topic. I just want to have a conversation about things that are permanent. Sitting next to my wife, eating our chocolates, I kept thinking that I should run over and buy the cashier a sandwich so he could eat something during his graveyard shift. I thought I should go over, pick up one of the sandwiches from the deli he was manning, pay for it, and a Pepsi, and then give it to him. He would sit on that milk crate underneath that rack of cigarettes, sweating, listening to the Steelers romp the Baltimore Ravens, thinking about the irony of how he was now eating the sandwich he was in such a hurry to make just a few minutes ago. I chickened out, though. After we finished our chocolates, my wife said, "I'm going to bed." 2 hours later, after watching a remake of Ocean's 11 and having thought, more than once, how I really don't think Julia Roberts is that attractive, I stood up and looked out of our window into the convenience store. Some lady was working in there.